Yo, what's going on YouTube? This is Bro Man Clash right here, and I'm gonna talk about a topic, and it's the topic of time. You know, I'm a YouTube watcher, and now I'm a YouTuber, and I've noticed something. And when people talk, they talk so fondly about nostalgia, but yet when probably some of those people that talk about how way the old days were good, but yet they probably in their lifetime when they were younger, they wish they would grow up so they don't have to worry about, their parents nagging them, people picking on them. But it's funny because when you talk about nostalgia, especially when it comes right down to time, if you rush time, you realize how fleeting it is. And it's very funny because people think like older times were a lot better when there were definitely more noticeable flaws, especially when it comes right down to gaming. I mean, polygon counts are a lot higher nowadays. Nintendo 64 pushed that, with Porygon 2, showing that, especially when Porygon is just like a corruption on Polygon. But, it was very funny, and how the way some people talking about like the old days were a lot better. Maybe it's because, you took the old days for granted, and you looked at, oh yeah, the old days, man. I bet you the amount of dollars some of those people were talking about how the way the old days were a lot better because of this and a lot better because of that. But I could see how the old days were a lot better because the values were right there, right in front of your face. And I think the old days were a lot more valuable because of one reason only, because people were more honest with themselves. You know, Probably not as much makeup because things were continually being invented. That was the thing. Things were continually being invented. Now, almost everything that we could have thought of, except for ourselves, is being invented. I remember I saw this on Facebook, and out of the way back then, people would thought of like robots and all that crap. In Japan, they actually created like a life-size human robot. And if any of the fictional robot movies ever taught you anything, once a malfunction happens, well, what could be considered a malfunction is an epiphany for others. Like people who control you, they think, oh, if you think for yourself, it's a malfunction. But people who think for themselves, it's an epiphany, or how the way you pronounce it, or like like a spark of a thought. That was it. And then how does this tie in, with nostalgia, blind, or memories yearning for the past, and how the way it devalues of what is going on now. See, look, I'm not trying to say like the past was perfect or the past was just terrible, because everything and every time has like a balance. And if you forget that the past set forth and paved the way for us now in the present, and we have to pave the way for the future, you forget like the real purpose of living. You're meant to teach, not preach. You're meant to live, not to survive. Well, of course you're meant to live and survive, but if you catch my drift, just like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad once said, how to eat to live, not to live to eat. That's what I'm basically trying to go as. If you try to live your life as a survival game, sooner or later you're going to get hurt and possibly even worse, killed. I mean, in terms of survival, it's either killed or be killed. I think you get the whole gist. But but when it comes right down to time, people always want to talk about, oh, how the way the past was always better. We had less opportunities then, like you kids do now. But then, what does that tell you about you? Like, does that give you a reason to lounge around and have like excuses or something like that? I mean, some of these parents, they try to use the past as an excuse to get away with actions that they do today that corrupt the futures of tomorrow. And don't get me wrong, there not many parents, not all parents are like that. And I know that for a fact, but it's just that it's really pathetic when people who try to use the past as a weapon to gain way to the future, but yet destroying the present. They're only destroying themselves. And nostalgia blind people, I hate that. Sure, there may have been like some pros in the older days, especially with music, and it's not as cookie cutter. I mean, everybody had like a different style, but here's the thing: the older days were more inventive. Nowadays, it's less incentive, but it's more like we have to do things on our own. Thus, we have the imagination aspect of today. That's what I give credit to, especially to today's times. Sure, today is not looked fondly on, or is it even looked on with a positive light. But you cannot forget about those who actually did make a difference. That's the thing that should count the most, especially when it comes right down to time. Everybody has their time, everybody has their way of doing things. And it's kind of funny that a lot of people do not give people like enough chance to be themselves. Instead, they just want people just to be a copy clone of what the hell they used to be back then. But can I tell y'all something? Yeah, to all of you on YouTube, I just want to tell you this. Everybody starts out weak. The strongest person, the strongest tree started out from a seed. That seed was very vulnerable, but it grew up and it flourished. You can't cut down the tree and expect seeds to grow. And to parents who pressure their kids to become something that they don't want to be, man, y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. That's not discipline, that's control. The difference between discipline and control, especially when it comes to nowadays. Like, when I talk about nowadays, parents nowadays, they suck. It's not the children that suck, it's the parenting. Like, seriously, there are good examples of parents who actually do discipline their children. See, parents that I notice nowadays, they try to dominate their children. And then their children end up biting them in the worst ways, either through rebelliousness of the wrong cause, or just being a bad influence, man. And then kids end up committing suicide because their parents choose not to understand them, or just choose to just be like, man, you're gonna follow my way, man. That's how it's gonna go. And then it kind of makes you think that, what the hell is going on? Like, is it the stuff that we eating, or is it the fact that we don't believe in each other anymore? Back then, that's probably one of the pros I have to give back then. People believe in themselves. Now people can't even believe in themselves for one good minute. That's the sad thing. And it kind of makes you think on values like, wait a minute. We're talking about the youth right now. The reason why they're like this is because of poor guidance. And the reason why I'm talking about not so fondly of the past, because the past made the present. And the present will make the future. But time isn't always in a straight line. In fact, you have to look back to find out what's going on now. Thus, the future will be safe. But if you try to erase what happened then, the problems will continue to go on to now. And then the future will probably have no hope. So why try to hide things instead of just solving them? I admit, I have some unanswered questions myself. And quite frankly, I answered those unanswered questions on my own by looking back on what was going on. And instead of just like acting on pure instinct, I try to think about it a bit more. And instead of thinking about it a bit more, I just say, you know what, man, fuck it. Let me just be myself. But how does that deal with, nostalgia blind and time? See, when it comes to me, I'm family oriented. I love my family. And when I look back then, I say my family was all together. Then I look at now, family's all split up. And then the crap that really, really bothered me was the fact that I really wanted my family back together. But, you know what? The family needs to learn how to look past these differences and look at the similarities and just say we need to come together for one goddamn thing. And I know that's on a personal note. But when it came right down to, time, especially when they say time heals all wounds. Yeah, the past can heal See, you can either run from the past or you can learn from it. Just like a wise monkey from a Disney movie once said, the past can hurt. Well, you can either run from it or learn from it. Ah, there, you see? Now what you going to do? Remember that from Rock Freaky from The Lion King? Hey, I watched a couple of Disney movies when I was younger. I guess those are lessons from the past really that really stuck onto me like right now. And the thing about nostalgia is the fact that they don't learn from it. They live in it. That's dangerous. Especially when you live in the past. Especially when you're supposed to prepare for now. You can't always live in the past. And one notable example, and I'm going to pick this out from a fictional game series, and I love this with all my heart, from Sonic the Hedgehog, Shadow the Hedgehog. I mean, think about it. In Sonic Adventure 2, what was Shadow's main problem? He was in the past too much. He was melancholic. He was grim. Shit. He could not let go of the past. And as soon as he accepted the past in Shadow the Hedgehog, his own game, that's when he finally moved on and became himself. Some say he became drier than a sponge, but I think that's the process of finding yourself. You first start out hollow, then eventually you know who you are. I'm not trying to say that people who are nostalgia blind are like Shadow the Hedgehog. You know, you don't have to grab guns, swords, or any of that black arm jive. You don't have to do that. But the point I'm trying to prove is this. When it comes right down to, nostalgia, time, past, present, future, you have to really think, man, for real. What can help me now? Do I look back or do I focus on what's going on ahead? If I fix what the hell was wrong with me back then, instead of trying to go back then and relive it, you will realize that if you fix what was going on with you back then, your now will be either improved or it will stay the same. But if it improved, then that means what you done back then was rid of. But you don't have to get any kind of time machine or any of that crap. The real time machine is in your head. Some of you may say, like, no, that sounds really silly. No, I mean, think about it. Memories is like a time. Memories are like time. It's like a time machine. No, memory is like a time machine. And as you think back, you relive those memories. And sometimes problems that persisted back then will affect you now. So how do you deal with now? Look back then. Not as a fond time, but find out where the problem started. And if you look at your younger self and say, I see your sorrow, I see your pain. Instead of trying to live in the past, living in the past, look at your past self and say, hey, look, man, you gotta really shape up. I understand times are gonna get hard, but you can't give up that easily. You gotta press on and move on. But two things I will say out to you. Stay strong, stay smart. That's the only thing I gotta say. Tell that to your past self. And then you'll realize that even though it may be tough at first, because it's a gradual process, it's not going to happen in an instant. It's not microwave. It's, ingredients. You go to the supermarket, got a bowl of noodles, chop up the veggies, pound the meat, mix in the veggies with the meat. Make sure you put the proper seasoning in, and then wait for a couple of minutes to an hour, 2 hours maybe, and then bam, you got yourself a meatloaf. That meatloaf is you. No, I'm not trying to inspire cannibalism. Don't think that now. That's not the thing. What I'm trying to say is this: time. Everything takes time. If you want instant results, you're just gonna make yourself insane, and it's not worth it. Trust me. In order to be happy, you gotta first accept yourself. If you don't accept yourself, then you can never be happy. And how's this tie in with nostalgia, blind people, time, in essence, in itself? Because it deals with self. It deals with the illusion that you are growing old. See, look, of course, growing old, that's obvious. But yet some people live fast and die young, and that's really sad. Instead of thinking about long term. But, if you live in the past and you think you're innocent all the damn time without catching up what the hell is going on, then you realize that not only you're wasting time, you're wasting life. And there's nothing wrong with maturing. Some people try to act like maturing is like this. Oh yes, I'm mature. Yes, I got my nose stuck up in my own damn ass. That's not mature, man. That's just being fucking stuck up. I hate stuck up people. And that's another thing too. Nostalgia people are just too stuck up. Like people like them, they cannot look, past like differences. See, look, I think they try to look at what the hell they try to look at themselves, but they look at it from an arrogant point of view. You cannot look at things from an arrogant point of view. You gotta look at things from a confident point of view. And when you're confident, you can accept the differences and respect the similarities. And that's the thing. People lack acceptance. Especially nowadays. Back then, I think they were more in denial than they were accepting of it. But they managed to get through. Then, when you lack acceptance, you become a clone. When you're in denial, you become a drunk. When I mean a drunk, those who try to wash away their sorrows instead of trying to face them. That's what I mean by a drunk. But when it comes right down to it, man, don't be afraid. Be yourself. And when the time comes when you gotta go in deep within your subconscious, do it. Because eventually you'll find out what is really wrong with you. And why nostalgia is not good for you at all. Sure, the past may yield many wisdoms, but it also yields many faults and flaws. And with that, YouTube, this is Roman Clarence saying, I1, and I respect y'all. Hope y'all have a great day today, for real, or great evening. Later.